Stand by.
Hey everybody, it's Vindy Hammers, Steel Target Paint. I have one of my favorite people in the world here with me. That I cannot say how much of an influence this guy has had on me, both professionally, in a friendly atmosphere, and on the shooting field.
Thanks, man.
Who are you?
That's awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Justin Morris, originally from Versailles, Missouri, down by Lake the Ozarks. Talking about shooting, so I just want to jump right into that part.
Go for it.
Bring that up. When I grew up down in Versailles, my dad was in law enforcement. He was a firearms instructor, so that's where I first got into guns. I loved everything about guns, and before they had a range, they actually built stands and had a couple years of qualifications at my house. So I was all about that, learning about guns, picking up brass, digging bullets out of trees, things like that. So from there, I came to Kansas by way of Ottawa University. I went to play football there in 1998, and then I started with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office in 2005, which that's where you and I met.
Well, met is an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
So, where we officially met was in your training capacity. So
Yes.
you came into the training world.
I did. I mentioned my dad and seeing him in law enforcement. That's what I wanted to be. Excuse me. But as a firearms instructor too. So that was a goal of mine. Like I had some certain goals when I came to the sheriff's office. Hey, I want to be on the SWAT team. I want to be in training. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of good mentors to get me to where I wanted to go. And that started right when I started with the sheriff's office, and I had some great instructors, Steve Browers, Brent Moore, Joe Nagy. And at that time, there was an unofficial shooting team, and I got involved with that and started shooting my first matches. And I think 06 was my first trophy that I ever got. And it was a Friends of NRA match at Tri-County Gun and Rod Club, a great place to shoot, especially for new shooters. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to shoot there in a while, but a great place. And I think I got fourth in limited, so I still got the plaque. I don't think I know. I still got the plaque. It was fourth place, and that's kind of kicked me off on the competition side. And I showed my interest in training and shooting, and was able to get mentored by some great people, and eventually go to our full-time training unit, which sometime in 2008.
So one of the things about training, and let's go from there. Let's kind of take a segue here. So, and this is me personally. I have a lot of friends on Facebook and stuff that are with the sheriff's department, even at a supervisory level. So I want to make sure that I keep things in my opinion. My opinion, for me, was that you changed training as it was. And it was a bit of a mentality change, where we came from kind of like the old school type training, where I put your name and your face is where we started getting into that A way of training. Meaning you were putting the responsibility more on us to say, hey, I'm going to show you a way to do something. And then it's your responsibility to go practice that, because I think you were one of the first ones I ever heard say, we meet once a year, we train once a year. If this is all you do, I'm going to show you something. It's your responsibility to get out there, practice it, and make it yours.
Exactly.
As close as I can quote that.
Yeah.
So that was the mentality change, whether you had everything to do with it or not. Me personally, that's what I saw, and that's who I attributed to. So that was my attachment to you, and why I gravitated towards you and others.
That was definitely a goal of mine, and basically, I like the term optimal, is bringing optimal training to the sheriff's training division, and I can't take credit for all that. And like I said, I had some great mentors when I started. I mentioned Brent Moore, Steve Browers, Joe Nagy. I got firearms instructors
Some
from
of
them,
the best.
all awesome shooters,
and great people.
Then I go to the academy and I have Rick Staples,
Yep.
which is a wealth of knowledge. Awesome firearms instructor, awesome guy, a mentor for me. Then I was fortunate enough in 2007 to go to firearms instructor school through KLATC. So I had Boyce Moses, who is another great firearms instructor, wealth of knowledge,
and another great person. All these people you've mentioned are just amazing personalities and people. Good people.
And all had influence on me. And then you throw in there Larry Drake, who I met. He was at the crime lab at the time when I started. He and I weren't in training together yet. He'd already been to training. But I met him through that shooting team, and got started getting a lot of experience from him, insight. Just watching Larry shoot him, I was like, this old guy, how's he move so fast? Just efficient. Terms like Drake in it, where he's finding certain ways to shoot a stage. It was awesome getting his insight. Story about Larry. And whenever I teach classes, usually I use dot torture. He's the one that showed me dot torture.
Right.
And the first time I shot that, I wanted to kill him because technically the way you're supposed to shoot it, the way that he told me to shoot it, is if your bullet hole touches the line, you rip it down and start it over.
Yep.
I was so frustrated, dude. I ran out all the copies of the paper. I was almost out of ammo, dude. I was mad. I couldn't finish that drill.
Yep.
So anytime I introduced that drill, I said, Larry Drake's the SOB that showed me this drill, by the way. So I got to give him credit for that.
Yep. Can't touch the black.
Yeah, can't touch the black. So just developing there, and then when I went to the full-time training unit, being around guys, like I mentioned Brent Moore, he's the one that got me into competition shooting on the USPSA and the 3-gun side, which is my favorite. I like all shooting, but 3-gun is definitely my favorite and what I've been the most successful at. But I got to thank him for that. And getting to go to training, man. I mean, when I went to training division, I was going to training, and I love training. So again, Brent, there was a U.S. Shooting Academy back in the day when it started. I don't know if you're familiar with that or if it's even still going, but when it started, dude, it was a phenomenal place.
Yeah.
360 berm, Rogers Range, shoot house, 18 bays. They had Steel Challenge set up permanently. They had enough bays where they were just, each stage was set up permanently.
And where was this at?
That was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So it might still be there, but parts of it had been sold away. But they had a regional ILFE conference there. And I think that was the only year they had it in this area. And so at that time, you had Mike Seeklander there. You had Phil Strader or Strader, I don't remember how to pronounce his name. And Eric Lunn. I mean, you had these great instructors. So that's where I first got introduced to some high-grade instructors and kind of thinking about different ways to train. And I'll tell you, going back to what you originally talked about, is trying to change the way we train. And I don't know if that was, I just wanted to be optimal. I didn't know if there was anything wrong with the way we trained. I had never been through a core training yet. I was that new, just the way it worked out. But I knew that I didn't know it all, and I knew that there's more than one way to do stuff. And I knew that just because you're somebody's a wealth of knowledge, they don't have all the answers. The way I was taught to shoot was the semi-weaver from my dad, and he was a good shot. And then I started getting introduced to the way that we shoot now, the modern style shooting. So that taught me right there. My first mentor, my dad, was not wrong, but there's a better way to do things that he knew. And then you look at the difference with Boyce Moses, Rick Staples, both very good guys. But I remember contention there over the qual. Rick wanted more gunfight type mentality, and Boyce, was still wanting the 25-yard line.
Yeah, the accuracy.
And the difference in those, and they're both right.
Yep.
Gunfights happen at this distance as the primary was kind of Rick's deal, and Boyce Moses was like, if you can hit him at 25, you can hit him at 5. And I said, okay, yeah. So being able to look at those.
Merle Eddington said something very good to me, very similar to that, where it was a matter of, he was talking about getting training classes and stuff like that, and me and another guy were, where should we start if we want to improve? And he started saying some similar things, although Merle knows all of it. But he said something to me that I think I'll never forget, was that if you can't hit what you're aiming at, everything else is a waste.
Yeah.
Whether you're, how to move or how to reload or anything. So he showed us, ways to shoot more accurately. So there is a balance. And that's what I give you credit for, was always being able to walk that balance. And a lot of what you just said is the first time I've heard it. So it's even more, impressive that you can go and spend time at those high levels of training and then come back and deal with us, whether we work the jail or whether we work patrol or, whether we whatever, and you treated all of us as though, we were your peer, but you had something to show us. So you mentioned getting into the competitive world. Where's that at for you?
As far as when I started or where I'm at now?
When you start, and what's your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing is 3-gun. It started right when I started the unofficial shooting team. At that time, there was more local, like law enforcement only matches that have kind of went away, unfortunately. So I shot with that. Kansas Peace Officer Association matches, we were doing those. And then when I went to training, like I mentioned, Brent Moore got me into USPSA and 3-gun. And he's went on, to other interests besides that, but he's the one that got me started in that. Then I met Larry, and Larry had lots of experience in that too, and continued to grow. As far as that, at that time, we shot USPSA. I didn't shoot a Steel Challenge then. I was introduced to Steel Challenge, I think, when I went to the shooting academy, which would have been around 09-ish, maybe, with that. But there wasn't any matches around here at that time. But 3-gun matches had started at Mill Creek, so I started shooting those. My first big 3-gun match was the Zombies in the Heartland out in Grand Island, Nebraska, put on by Hornady, which is a great match. It's got a special place in my heart because that was the first one that we went to. I had some good buddies there with me shooting, and I looked at that match. I was like, hey, this is going to be a good match for us for a first shooting match. And then from there on, I tried to shoot two or three big 3-gun matches a year. Had some success with that in the limited or tack irons division. But now I am moving over to tack optics and shooting the Athlon Chronos 1x6, so I'm really excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that is an amazing company. I've already done a review on a couple of their dots. Yeah. I'm getting aligned with Athlon, and there can be some really good things coming there. We'll need to talk about that later.
Yes.
So answer me this question. Whether it be self-defense, law enforcement, or whatever category you want to add to it, why is competition important?
Competition's important because it puts you under pressure. It's going to make you handle your gear. It's going to make you handle your guns. It's going to get you into mindset. It's going to get you into situations that you feel uncomfortable, that you're going to have to calm yourself back down to. It's going to get you behind the gun. It's going to make you practice. So that's all good things that you need for self-defense. And the people that say, self-defense shooting versus competition shooting, it's like, go shoot competition, man, because it's going to put you under stress running your gun. How is that bad? How is that going to be bad at all? And sometimes people talk about, gamesmanship and doing this, doing that. You're smart. Your brain's going to know the difference. As far as using cover, not using cover, if somebody's really shooting at you, your body's going to want to hug to that cover. You're going to have to fight. In my mind, you're going to have, not that I've been shot at, thankfully, but you're going to have to fight to get out and get there, as opposed to, hey, you shoot competition, so you're not going to use cover appropriately, is one argument I've heard. I really don't agree with that. So get out, handle your gun, put yourself under pressure is going to be awesome. And you're going to learn stuff, man. I learned a lot of stuff from competition shooting that can come over to tactics, learn different ways to clear malfunctions. Mm-hmm. You and I had that conversation one time on the range. I don't know if you remember, and we were teaching the way we clear double feeds, which is A way, not D way. There's many other ways out there. But when you got a group of people, all different training levels, all different commitments to training, you have to pick a way. You can't, at that time, it's not that it's a way, but you got to pick a way, because I can't teach you 3 ways to clear double feed.
Exactly.
That's going to confuse you, and there's not enough time for that. So you do have to pick under those circumstances, and you were clearing it in a different way, and you're like, why would I do it this way? And it's like, you're not wrong,
I don't
man.
remember. What was I doing different?
I think you're almost removing the magazine, putting it back in and racking.
Yeah.
And as opposed to us taking the mag out, putting the pinky, cycling 3 times,
yeah.
and then reloading. And I was like, I'm good with that. You know why? Because you put in the training time, and you're at a different level than everybody else is. So as long as it made sense to you, and you had the training time behind it, and it worked, then yeah, do that. Yeah. But I can't teach that to everybody.
Because I remember you coming up to me because I was doing it, and this isn't to boast myself, but I realized as well, and the only part of that I remember is that I was doing it so much faster than everyone else, because not only was it a malfunction, but we had to shoot after.
Yep.
You know, so we started with that, come out of the holster, or come from low
It
ready.
might even have been a race against another person too. It might have been a one-on-one type competition.
I remember us doing those.
Yeah.
But I just remember that I was doing, because what I remember is thinking to myself, I must be skipping something here and doing something. You know, everybody else is doing something that, you know, and I remember you coming down and talking to me. I just don't remember the conversation too much.
Basically, it makes sense. And when I teach, and I've been lucky to teach, you know, with the sheriff's office, with the Kansas City Metro Tactical Officers Association, which is now the Heartland Tactical Officers Association. I've been able to teach with them, teaching new SWAT guys for probably 10 years now, working with some great guys in the tactical community, because I was also on our CERT team, which I think I got on there in 2007, so I was on there from 2007 to 2019.
Yep. So you touched on something for a moment that I find a little bit disheartening. And one of the things that I came out and even in my entry said, I kind of want to change. I want to change the mentality of shooting overall. I want to change a little bit how we all interact, because there is, I don't know if animosity is the right word, but there is a border in between competitive shooting and the tactical world, and by and large, they don't like to mix with each other. And I want you to respond to something that again, Merle Eddington, one of the other people that has shown me a lot and talked to me a lot about things, one of the things that he said in both worlds was that he was making the point at that time about USPSA, where you won't see a lot of law enforcement coming out and shooting because they're not going to be immediately successful. Where they might be successful in the tactical world, they're not going to be at the top of the list at the end of a USPSA game, because it's a different game. And
I agree with that.
To have to get better at something, you have to sometimes take that 3 steps back to go 6 steps forward, and vice versa. That's why you'll get competitive people that, you know, go into law enforcement or whatever it might be, and they think that, you know, they're going to do this, that, and the other in a tactical situation. And like you said, your brain is smart enough to know if you know the difference.
Right.
You know, so what is your feedback on maybe why there's that border there and how we would break through that?
I think the border there, you know, and I agree with what Merle said. Merle told you. And I think part of that is, like he said, that I go there as a law enforcement officer. I'm a trained professional. And that's something that Rick Stable said. You're a professional gunfighter. You're getting paid to carry a gun. People are like, you know, what are you talking about? And those are police officers that look at that. And I like the way he said it, because it kind of brought it, hey, you need to take responsibility for yourself and what you're doing for the community and your fellow officers. You need to train with your stuff, and you need to know your gear. So I think sometimes people get in there that are law enforcement, and I go to a match and I get absolutely smoked, and that hurts my ego, and that hurts who I'm supposed to be, and I don't like that anymore. I think that's part of it. I can't say that's all of it, but I think that's definitely part of it. I think it's time. I think a lot of, you know, law enforcement officers working stuff, it's time. And honestly, there's, you know, not everybody in law enforcement is like us that loves guns.
Right.
You know? And
well, to that credit, to that point, to further that point, you know, when Steve Browers was my sergeant, we used to talk about shooting all the time, and that was one of the things that he said, is that he would love to be out there doing it. He just can't commit a whole day.
Yeah, Steve used to compete. Him and Brent, I know, won a sub-gun match one time over in Missouri together.
Yeah, he just can't commit a full Saturday to going out and you know, shooting a competition, which I get that part, absolutely.
There's only so much time, so I think if you're shooting, you're shooting. And if you look at the tactical side, which I'm involved in that, through being on the SWAT team stuff, and love training TAC guys, but where do we do that other than training?
Right.
I can't, you know, is there a tactical match around here? I mean, where else do you do that? So, especially most officers don't get that much training, so how am I get, one, where's the venue for me to train at? Two, who's there with me? So I'm training on my own, or I'm training with my buddy. When I go to a match, look how many people I'm getting exposed to. Look at the equipment, look at the skills, look at the techniques. You know, what if I'm there and I get to be in a squad with Merle Eddington? How much am I going to learn there? You know, and that's one thing great about the shooting sports is there's no pro level. You know, there's no Canadian Football League, National Football League, Arena League. It's all there. When you go to a big match, you're competing against the best.
Yep.
when you went to Steel Challenge Nationals, you know, Max Michelle there, all the studs, JJ Rakoza are there. When I go to a 3-gun match, you know, I've been there. You've got Jerry Michalik, you've got Todd Jarrett, you've got all these greats, and you're competing against them. Yep. And so what are you going to learn there? You know, I remember at the zombie match, I think last year, Todd Jarrett was in the squad in front of us, and he was sitting there giving a lesson in the safe area to somebody on trigger control and manipulating, you know, basics of manipulation of the pistol. I was a fly on the wall, dude. I was listening in. So where do you get that experience?
Yep.
You know, if you're just keeping it tactical side and you're around your same community, and we talked about all the time under pressure and things like that, it's always going to make you better. So you should do both. You should have both sides of it, and I think that will make you better in whatever your primary thing is. And most importantly to me is defense of yourself or others.
That's exactly right. So where I think we agree, because you kind of said the same thing, is where I think in both areas, competition and in the TAC world, law enforcement, whether that be TAC, you know, military even, is people base a lot of their ego and even their self-identity on their skills in a particular box, and then to go into another box where you may not be quite as successful. Maybe you're a big fish in this pond, and then you wind up being a small fish over here simply in the beginning, simply because it's a different game. But people have attached their ego and their identity to that, and it hurts that ego. But let's talk about some success in the equal opposite, because, and with you being into it, so I never quite understand how deep you really are into the tactical world and how much you know. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I showed you a video one time that was going around YouTube, and it was this ridiculous video of these 5 people standing there, and they're shooting, and the instructor is walking back and forth in front of them. I don't know if you remember this conversation or not. But this instructor is walking back and forth in front of them while these guys are shooting. And to look at this, and the rest of the internet is on fire, this guy's an idiot. And I remember showing you this video, and I expected, you know, you to do the same. Oh, that's ridiculous. And you looked at it and you said, listen, man, at high levels of training, sometimes that's what it takes. And I think we concurred that in the video that wasn't high level training.
Right.
But what I got from you is that type of training may very well go on at the very high levels. So,
and I think my point was there might be a reason for that.
Yes.
You know, I remember going through, like I said, I was fortunate to go through a lot of schools and make a lot of good contacts. But one of them was Strategos patrol rifle instructor, which was a very good class. And he had a picture there. And basically it's like, I'm going this way shooting, you're going this way shooting. And there's like 10 people doing that. And same thing that you asked me, is like, what do you think? And it's like, if he's got a reason for it, there might be a reason I don't know about. You know, I've got good experience. I've got, made a lot of good contacts, but there's a lot of stuff I don't know too. So there might be a reason for that. I'm not going to make a snap judgment. There's stuff out there that I have no idea about, man. Experience-wise, techniques I haven't been introduced to. So I'm not going to make a judgment call on that right away. I just say safety is paramount in training, but also if you're doing some type of high-end job where you're going to be moving around people, shooting around people, then that's what it takes to make sure you don't shoot the wrong person.
And that's what I got out of that conversation, because to bring it down to even a more basic, is that the judgment that I was making on looking at that was the same thing as dealing with like a brand new shooter that shows up with whatever holster and like, hey, I got this at Walmart, you know, and then condoning them for it or whatever, rather than, so where I think there has been some successful crossover is a lot of the tactical and even military guys are basing their setups now off 3-gun. Are they not?
I have. I've been fortunate enough to go down and be an instructor for an organization, and there were some SEALs there. And actually, at that time, I didn't realize that they were running Glock 19s. I think you and I had that conversation, and everybody was running Glock 19s. I was like, man, I'm behind the time, but. Glock 19s with threaded barrels. A few of them had optics, maybe a handful, but most of them didn't. But I'm seeing tearing tactical base pads. I'm seeing other base pads on these pistols, and it just kind of it surprised me a little bit. And I wondered if that came from them shooting competition, or there just wasn't anything out there. But I definitely think that there is, and people are realizing the benefits and the value of competition. because they're getting exposed to something different. If I'm used to training with my TAC team all the time and there's going to be competition there, I'm going to be a little nervous, but I'm used to that. When I go to a match, especially a 3-gun match or something where it's not standardized like Steel Challenge, I don't know what those stages are going to be till I get there, and it's going to be something maybe really uncomfortable for me. The first time that I had started a stage with the unloaded rifle slung, slung around my back. Well, okay, now when I bring it out, is it going to knock my gun out? I mean, all kinds of different stuff. It makes you uncomfortable. That's good, and you have to think on your feet. And you're also looking at other people and learning from other people. So I think people are realizing that, and it gets you behind the gun. Kind of my philosophy is this should be automatic. Your problem is going to be potentially something that you've never seen for or never trained for before. So I need my mind free to make decisions, evaluate, do what I need to do to get the job done. Mm-hmm. So this should be automatic. So anytime I could run this gun, malfunction clearances, all that stuff, I don't want to think about how to clear double feet. I don't want to think about what to do with my flashlight when my magazine goes empty. That needs to be automatic, so my brain is free to solve any problem that comes before me.
It's funny, and I'm smiling because a thought just occurred to me, and me and Tyson hit this in our video. We actually kind of made fun of you a little bit.
Well, that's all right.
But it was a good way.
That.
It was a good way. So you were the first person to... you and I are the same in the way that we do our pistols. I will walk around the house with that pistol in my hand, empty of course, but because it's part of me, and I take it everywhere with me. If I'm watching TV, I've got it with me. And we gave you such a hard time because you were the first one in cord training to admit dry firing on the toilet. And we gave you such a hard time. But the truth of the matter is that all of us do it. All of us that take this stuff really serious.
Download it, make it safe, man.
Yeah. So you came into law enforcement.
Yes.
Came into training. Got into competition. Where are we going now?
I like to throw in there too is getting on the CERT team, got exposed to that tactical side that we're talking about, mm-hmm. and you're talking about training I was able to go to. I had many great mentors, and when I went to the CERT team, guys like Scott Slager, Judd Brungard were there to guide me and to continue helping me grow, and then being involved in training through the Heartland Tactical Officer Association, their conferences. Somebody would go give a speech on something or a debrief, and they had information I wanted. I wasn't afraid to go ask them. I wasn't afraid, I guess, that's something I always try to keep. I try to keep myself humble, as I'm not afraid to ask you. And if you think I'm an idiot, then maybe you think I'm an idiot. But I'm going to get that information because I want to know, and the people I train, I want to provide them the best I possibly can. So I'm going to ask that. So that got me making a lot of contacts. I got to go train with other TAC teams, being with the Heartland Tactical Officer Association, going and teaching basic SWAT for a long time. Got to make some great friends with other TAC guys in the area. I got a lot of what I call my brothers from over in Kansas City, Missouri, that we push each other back, bounce ideas off each other. And then taking that, being able to go help out with the advanced SWAT that we run up at Camp Dodge every year, getting exposed to some former FBI HRT guys, and the same thing. Hey, what do you got? How do you guys teach CQP? Where do you go? Well, we recommend this is my favorite school to teach that. Okay, I'll go look that up. And I'm a network, and my ability to network allowed me to get invited to a lot of classes, and I had a lot of times they would offer me the class for free and just, hey, find your way here. And that's something that I try to impress upon, especially new law enforcement officers, is I've never been turned down when I asked another person or another agency if I could come train with them. Absolutely, I've never been turned down, and 9 times out of 10, they say, you find your way here, the training is going to be free. So being able to make those contacts led to more contacts, to being able to go to some really cool classes with some FBI SWAT guys, other guys, getting invited down to Mid-South and go down there and train, which is, I'm fortunate enough to have several dates coming up that I get to go down there and teach, because that place is like Disney World for shooters, man. I'm telling you, it's an awesome place. So I had lots of good experiences that I took advantage of, but they're also offered to me by a lot of great mentors, and hopefully I've mentioned most of them. And that's going back to the whole original question of training is I want it to be optimal. And a lot of times we were talking about that old school training mentality is that I would see is it make people nervous, man. They're yelling at people and making them nervous. And it's like, if that's your intent, you know, if you have a reason for doing that, by all means. But if your reason right now is to teach that person, you're failing, because I can see them shutting down, man. They're already nervous, and now they're getting more nervous.
Well, and you know, so my opinion here, and you can throw this in your conversation as well, is that I think in the beginning, the military was doing that, and that was how they would induce stress. They want you to be under stress. But I think it morphed. I think it went from this is how we do it, and the next generation, a couple generations down. Before too long, I'm yelling at you because my ego tells me to yell at you.
Or that's the way I was taught.
Yeah, you know? or simply that.
And there's a time to put people under stress. You need to, and it's kind of, you know, if you're in a training class, I've been in some great training class. Usually, you know, 5-day pistol or rifle intensive class. That the best ones that last day is scenarios. You know, and FX is probably the best for that.
Yep.
And your people are fighting you and hitting you, and you have to shoot them, and it's close range and all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
Point being, I might need to yell at you, but not when you're learning how to shoot it the first time.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's where I like the term optimal. Is it's got to be optimal for you. I always looked at it as the old, you know, you got the big board, and you got the different shapes that you fit into. Board's got stars, triangles, everything. It's like people are taking a square peg and they're trying to shove it into every slot. You know, it's not going to fit. So that's in my mind when I'm a trainer. It's like I have to fold the information to fit whatever that shape is. You know, maybe that person's a triangle, maybe that person's a star, but I need to look at you, find out the best way to get you the information, because that's the goal, is for you to get better. And that was my philosophy and my goal when I went to the training division is to do that. And like you said, look, guys, law enforcement, I don't care what they say, they don't get trained enough.
No.
If you look, I was fortunate enough, like I said, go to a lot of great classes. I went to Force Science Institute certification class. Awesome class, and a lot of information on there. But, you know, when you break it down, the time of training, you look at a high school athlete playing 4 years of a sport, including practices and games, let's say a wrestler. They're going to have more time doing that skill than a law enforcement officer has, including their initial training in the academy. I have like a 20-year law enforcement officer when you break it down. And we know, you be involved in martial arts, me, you know, those skills, you need to be doing 2 to 3 times a week, not 4 hours, not 4 hours a year or things like that. So if I can impress upon people that this is important, that a lot of times we get lulled in day-to-day activity with dealing with uncooperative people, that we forget that sometimes they're going to take it a step above us. And the bad guy always has a vote in the fight. So if I could get that intrinsic motivation for them started, that's the best way, because we're never going to provide them enough training.
No.
So they don't
get anywhere near enough. Even just in the aspects that I do, we don't get enough for where we're at.
Yeah.
You know, and then to make that even worse, on a short tangent here. To make that even worse is not only are we not getting the amount of training that we need, but our mistakes are far more costly than any other profession.
Yeah.
You know, so you're not getting as much training as, you know, like somebody learning to work on a computer. You know, but if they mess up, well, they can go in and fix that. Well, we mess up, and very bad things can happen.
Yeah, very very bad things that, you know, as we're seeing now, can affect the person, that person's family, you know, other officers, and the whole community, man.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. So where are you going now? What do you got going on now?
Well, the 25th of this month will be my last day at the sheriff's office. So taking an early retirement from there after almost 16 years. It would be 16 years in January. So I'm just going to, you know, chase my passion of training. So I'm staying in the area. I'm going to be helping out our buddy Tyson Kilby with Top Firearms Instruction, working for his company doing private lessons. Also, Mr. Chronister's company, Guardian Training Solutions, who, you know, Chronister, you and I both work with him, and he's on the TAC team with me, and a very knowledgeable guy. And then I've got several dates to go down and teach at Mid-South. Tyson and I are actually reps for compliant technologies, the glove,
Right.
which you're familiar with. We've been.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
So that is the plan. Again, I'm not going to go anywhere as far as I plan on staying in the area, but that and shooting a lot more matches, man. You know, I'm excited about shooting. I like shooting. I want to shoot all classes of USPSA eventually, single stack, open, all that. But right now, primarily be in 3-gun, hopefully some USPSA and some steel challenge. So I'm excited.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a big commitment to walk away from, you know, what people would consider their bread and butter.
Yes.
To take that big step to doing something on your own that you want to do, that you know you're good at, and know that you're going to have to rely on that. That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And hopefully
it's exciting and a little scary.
Yeah,
honestly,
I can only imagine. Hopefully, the little bit of support that I can do here.
Appreciate that, brother.
You know, Tyson, I told him the same thing. I hope that he's a regular face here. Same
Definitely,
thing
man.
with you. Like I said, as we start up this whole before we start this interview, kind of getting a little bit of the band back together. As far, you know, not that I was a part of the band, but the band of people that had the most influence on me. I really hope that I can get them back together.
Well,
working together.
I'm proud to be somebody that influenced you, brother.
Oh, huge, huge.
You've made some awesome accomplishments in shooting, and I'm proud of you, and I'm ready to learn from you, dude, especially on the optics stuff.
Well,
because I believe that is the way of the future.
We'll do a whole thing on that.
Yes.
So you're going to get into training. I have something that I wanted you to go over with me, and we're going to go over with everyone. What does low light mean?
Low light. Well, most people are going to consider that diminished lighting conditions. I mean, it can be all kinds of different scenarios. Some people think completely pitch black, which if you actually look at it, unless you're out in the country doing something on a cloudy night, it's really not going to be that much pitch black out there, especially in the environments that we're in. So some type of diminished light where you're looking, you know, with a certain distance and you can't make out an object or whatever it is, that you're going to need a light source to light it up. And then if you're looking at a self-defense situation, I have to be able to identify that threat. What is that? It could be as simple as something goes bump in the night outside, and is that a raccoon? What is that? So I need a light source to illuminate that.
Be one of your kids.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's exactly where I wanted to start, was that a lot of people glaze over that or don't realize it at all, is when we're talking about low light, especially because one of the things that goes into reports, as you know, with law enforcement, is all of the conditions, whether it be snowy, rainy, dark, light, what time of day.
A good report will have that, yes.
Yeah, okay, touche, a good report. So we can't be shooting anything in pitch black, you know, at least from any type of distance, because the first question is going to be what?
What is it? What are you shooting at?
Yeah, well, could you identify your target?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to say no because it was pitch black, right? So that's for me cardinal rule number one. So how do we deal with low light, diminished light, as you're calling it?
You need a light source. I like both of these setups. I like the weapon mounted light setup, and I like the handheld setup. If I had to pick one, I would pick the handheld setup, but it's going to take a little bit more training, because simply with that, I'm pointing a gun at anything I want to illuminate or pointing a gun by. Obviously, I can hold it down like this and still get some illumination off the light. But with the handheld light, I have more maneuverability with it, and I have no issue with lighting somebody up and putting it in there. And also, I can use it as a weapon if needed. And I've seen it used as a distraction technique, actually, by retired Deputy Norm Bissonette in one of our scenarios. It was the only time I saw that, but there was a guy getting in his face, and he actually used a distraction. He had his light out, and he lit him up in the face, and the person kind of took him back, and that gave Norm time to get a little bit of distance and get a better situational awareness there. So a handheld is what I recommend. Weapon mounted lights are awesome, but a handheld to me is more versatile than the weapon mounted light. If you could have both, that is great.
Why? Why is this better?
This is better for searching for me. A great school and one of the best in the country for low light techniques is Strategos International, based out of Lee Summit. Mark Warren, one of the owners of that company and one of the best instructors I've ever had. The search techniques they teach are awesome, and the handheld light is the best for those. Like I said, I could use it as a weapon. If I don't know what's going on, I don't know what that is, and I'm not justified in pulling my gun out yet. I could pull my light out. Right. If I have a weapon mounted light, then I'm kind of stuck into that. Either I got to look and try to find a better angle to get better lighting, or I have to pull my weapon out to illuminate it. Like I said, I don't have to point it. I could have it down, but still, maybe I don't want my gun out. Maybe I'm not justified in having that. So I got my handheld light. I could light it up.
Yep.
I can use that, like I said, as a striking.
Let me expand on that.
Yeah.
As you move on,
Sure.
because to remind you of something that you said to me and that I always remembered is that, because at the time we were having a conversation about carrying both. And you said, it's okay to have this, but you still want this. And your justification for that was similar to what you just said. And I think it's a point that needs to be driven home, is that if it's a low light situation and we need to shine a light on something, and the only light we have is our gun, and we shine that light at someone, well, we're also pointing our gun at them.
Mm-hmm.
And if we weren't justified in pointing our, and this is self-defense or law enforcement, but especially self-defense, if you come out on the lawn to check something out and you point your light, which is also your gun, at somebody, well, now what are they justified to do?
Right.
Defend themselves.
Yes.
Because now you're pointing a gun at them.
Yeah.
And it might not be for a good reason. So I always remember that you said that, and that was something that I always attributed to the pistol-mounted lights.
Yeah, like I said, best case scenario, you have both, because if you know you need your gun out, especially people with smaller hands, it becomes difficult to shoot, and our normal two-hand shooting position is the best, and the lights are going to try to do that. The good lights are going to try to allow you to activate the light and still keep your normal two-hand shooting position, but most of them are still a compromise in some way of that. So both are awesome, but I definitely recommend the handheld light because it's more versatile. It is a second thing to carry, obviously, but like I said, I don't want to have my weapon out yet. I have that illumination tool, and I can use it as a striking implement and a distraction. It's a tool, and it's a worthwhile tool. It could be simply something as somebody drops their keys under their car. I don't want my only light source to be my weapon-mounted light. I would like to have a handheld light, and I think for fighting and searching, if you're trained, you're gonna like the handheld light better for that.
So one of the reasons one of the questions that I had recently proposed was, so this is a home gun. This is just a Glock with a light that actually my wife bought that for me when I went into the academy.
Nice.
This is what I'm carrying now. And this is actually the brand new, brand new to me anyway, TLR 7 from Streamlight. And it's the smaller version of this guy. And this is pretty much how our duty guns are set up now with this particular light. So you can see how large that is, how big that is. One of the questions that I posed recently was, should your carry gun have a light on it? And for reference, this is my carry gun. So let's see yours. Where's your carry gun? Right there. It doesn't have a light, I noticed.
No. Weapon mounted lights are always awesome. I think if you can have them, dude. I haven't messed with the TLR 7, but I like that. I like the small profile of it. If you can get one and you have it in your holster, honestly, I didn't have a holster at the time that fit a weapon mounted light, so I didn't carry one.
The point I think
I don't always carry a handheld light too, so
right.
Especially if it's smaller profile like that, it's not adding a bunch of weight and adding an imprint. I think it's an awesome idea to have a weapon mounted light on your carry.
Because I asked you about this, and you and Kilby.
What was my response at the time?
You and Tyson both gave me the same answer.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah.
It's
a safe answer.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt anything. However, to further your point, it wasn't so detrimental important that you went out and got a new holster and carry it every day that way.
It's not. It's not.
Not that you're against it. But
yeah, and majority of time I carry a handheld flashlight just because useful. But again, to be honest, I don't always do that. So that is something to be said for the weapon mounted light on your carry gun, is that you're always going to have a light source if needed. The other side of that, while I tended to not make it a priority to have one, is one, this is the light that I had, so it was a lot bigger. I didn't have a holster for it. And a lot of the times you're going to be in an environment where it's not extremely low light, where you necessarily need that illumination tool as much, in my mind. And that could be a naive, because the first time I need to shoot somebody can be in a pitch dark basement. So that is leaving myself open for that potential. But you asked me, and that's what I go with. We talked a little bit too about night sights, and yes, I think you want night sights simply because shooting with my competition gun during night range, just to try it out, once it was severe diminished light, I could not see my sights.
Right.
So I would definitely recommend night sights.
And there's a good discussion to have there as well, because most people, when you talk about that, they'll talk about, oh, well, I'll use this or I'll do that or whatever it might be. But one of the things that I remind people of is something that I was taught in training. I don't know if you specifically said this to me, but I'll never forget it. We're responsible for every single round we put down range, to the point that if we shoot a round of shotgun buckshot, there's 9 pellets. That's 9 shots. We're responsible for all 9 of those where they go. So if it's dark and you're just you're going to fire one to get a muzzle blast and see where something is, well, where'd that round go?
Exactly.
So I think the next time that we see you is either going to be with Tyson doing some jiu-jitsu stuff, but what I want to do is I want to do a low light video specifically on that.
For sure.
The last thing I want to touch on this is the difference in flashlights. So this one is one of my favorites. However, it's outdated in that it's not near as bright as modern ones, but it only does one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one goes bright, light, bright, dim, bright, dim. And I actually hate this flashlight because of that. I don't like that. However, I carry this one. This is the one I carry actually in the jail. And I know that I got to hit it twice. But that dim has also helped me in a couple times. So, though for arson. Now, here's the last thing. So this one does kind of the same thing, although I'm a little bit more used to this one because it comes out bright first. But it has our last little culprit here.
It's got the strobe on it.
Everybody thinks that is so freaking cool. Now, I remember asking Steve Browers one time, what is the function of this? And he had a decent answer. What's your answer?
Disorientation. Mm-hmm. You're gonna in my mind, you use that for disorientation. I have a subject. I'm gonna do something around the subject, or I'm gonna hold them while you put hands on them or something like that. I'm gonna strobe them for disorientation. Or I located them, I light them up with the strobe, and I'm look into my light, and I'm walking them back towards me. It's all distraction. I'm not gonna use that for search. I'm going to use a regular light going back into that, but that would be what my strobe function is for, is the disorientation of a subject, not for searching with, in my opinion. Your old light, like you said, just one setting. That's my preferred too, although I do like the strobe function if I can get to it, but I like just that simple on-off, not going through low power, high power. But that being said, your other light here is, and we go to lumens, and you talked about that, it's not as bright. If I'm in a house with a bunch of white walls and it's close space and I have a super bright light, that's going to affect my eyes. That's going to start whitening stuff out for me. So the brightest light isn't the best light. What I would say for carry is you want something that's, go take it outside if you can, or just have knowledge about the lumen power that you could light up a distance that you think is realistic to you to have a threat. I'm not talking about 100 yards away or 200 yards away. And I like a light that's smaller that I can manipulate my pistol with. When I first started the sheriff's office, it was all the big CD cell mag lights, so it went under your arm. And then I'm in the training division with, guys like Tyson and my good buddy Mark Thompson, and we're like, hey, this doesn't work that well anymore, especially in a heavy coat. And I'm a bigger guy. like I can't find that light as easy as a mag light, so maybe I keep it in my hand. So smaller, thinner, and I like a type of rubber coating. So when I am manipulating it with my weapon, doing a tap rack, and some people don't like doing that, but my hands are big enough I can tap rack with the light in my hand. I like a little bit of rubber coating so it's not as slick with the metal on metal. But small, thinner the better. Decent amount of lumen power, whatever you think is important for you. Remember that it's too bright could hurt you as well. Plus it's going to suck your battery life a lot faster. Plus if you leave it on your pocket, it's going to be a lot hotter, get a lot hotter faster.
Yeah.
How many of us have done that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have.
Got the warm pocket going on.
I have. Or you're walking by and you get that. Hey idiot, lights on. So next time we get together, whether it be the jiu-jitsu stuff or we're going to do a video on just this, because there are some techniques that you showed us when you're in a core training on how to search and how to use these different functions that have still stuck with me and I want more.
Yeah. And it's another reason to train, and it's another reason to touch your gun. So that's why, you know, even if you do prefer a weapon mounted light, I would suggest that you start training with this, because it's a backup. Your weapon mounted light could go out. But also, I like to think about variety in your training. So if you can add stuff, you know, you're really good. You're working with your weapon mounted light. You're going to start to get a little bored of that maybe. So maybe that's when it's time to add in the handheld light and start working with that, because it's a way of finding the training fresh. And, you know, I've talked about training before and reading books like, you know, with Winning in Mind by Lanny Basham and things like that, is some people that they refer to that as the deep practice. And that's what I try to get when I'm in dry fire, and I'm sure you too. And sometimes that comes about by adding something new to your training. It could be the flashlight. It could be working with the left hand. It could be a new weapon system.
Right.
It could be a new piece of gear. And I'm not a big gear guy, but I've thought about that a lot. And it's like, sometimes, you know, buying that race holster, that $260, you know, Double Alpha Academy race holster might not make you that much fast physically, but if it gets you excited about training and gets you training more and having that deeper practice, then it's worth it.
Very true. Very true. So we're going to go over this more. We're going to hit these flashlights. We're going to hit these techniques. I recently put up the question, weapon mounted light or not. I got mixed reviews. We've talked about it. I can tell you, we're going to go into this more, but I can tell you that I have not found this thing to be, whether this be practice, you know, in the house, down here, dry fire, whatever it might be, I have not found this thing to be a replacement for this by any means whatsoever. And Tyson Kilby actually pointed something out to me that I resonate with. And when I took it into practice, I found it to be true. So one of the people told me when I was looking at this dot, they said, make sure you get the one with the little rocker switches that come down here past the trigger guard, which are similar to these other ones. Mm-hmm. I actually don't like that. I don't like them there. Because if it's dark and I want to stay dark, I don't want to be accidentally hitting, you know, something. Yeah. And so that's why I got this one. Tyson Kilby said the coolest thing to me when I asked him in person one time. So the way that this one works, okay, again, this is the TLR7. The way that this one works is if you press and hold, that's your intermittent. And then when you let go, it goes back off. But when you press it, just a quick press, that's when it stays on. And I think that's the coolest thing. I think that's the perfect setup. And then when you click it, it goes back off. So here's what Tyson asked me. He said, when are you ever going to use intermittent on a weapon light? And I thought, well, what? I'm just like every other, you know, internet guru. Yeah. Well, you're going to use it all the time. And he looks at me, are you? Tell me when you would use that. And I got to thinking, I'm like, so you mean to tell me that a weapon light, it's either on or it's off? So I went to the range, and I went out, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to shoot this thing. Tell me what happened. You know what happened.
What, trying to hold it on?
Yeah.
Every time you shoot, it starts going
yeah.
off.
I got this thing going crazy. So we're going to talk about those things.
My quick answer to that is training.
Yes.
If you're training, you train, then you're going to use intermittent use of light or whatever. If it's a weapon mounted light, which is a little harder, or if it's a handheld, definitely.
What I have found, it does not. This is the flashlight that I carry with me all the time. It does not replace this. Now on night range, it's fun to have that.
Yeah.
You know, but it just simply doesn't replace having a flashlight. Listen,
I agree. I would prefer the handheld.
we've gone over a lot of stuff. We're
been
going to
fun,
go over
dude.
more.
It's been fun.
I am going to try
I
to
don't
get
know how long we've been going, but it doesn't seem like that long.
too long. Further than
He's
most
tired of
people's-
me.
No, I'm not. It's just that most people's attention span is wore out a lot.
I'm one of those, so yeah, I understand that.
So we're going to try to get a podcast going. So that'll be more appropriate for like what we're doing now.
Sure.
This will likely be the people that are still hearing us talk are going to be the people that know us and love us and or work with us and either want to wait for us to say something stupid or they have an interest in something.
or
that we
they're
have to
really
say.
bored. So
Yeah. So thank you for
my
coming.
pleasure, brother. My pleasure, dude.
We're going to do more.
It's fun.
We're going to do more.
I hope so.
All right.